If you're speaking about intimacy the way that's in a very subtle way described in Daughter of Fire, for example, um, where as a Western woman who feels and knows, and lives an entitled life, a privileged life, an independent life, to go to India, a country that's smelly and dirty. And for the longest time, you have categorized these people as barbarians and savages and third class people. You go to this place and there is a man who keeps telling you that you're an idiot. And there comes a point where you confess that you're an idiot, and then you cry, and then you tell him without him you're nobody. I mean, these are parts of yourself you're exposing to a man. And it's very intimate, as a woman, as a 50-year-old woman, to kind of just say to someone, yeah, I am nothing. I am lesser than dirt. There's only one way or one reason you could say all those things about yourself to another, that you love them, you respect them, you have faith in them, you trust them. Could it backfire? Absolutely. But why you love and have faith and trust and all that stuff, you're blind. And part of the reason why you're saved is the fact that you're blind. You don't see, and hopefully by Sahib or whoever doesn't do anything that will cause you to, doubt your trust and faith and love, you know. Um, you know, Sophia is still very young, but apparently when she was in this room, she was asked to go to the bedroom and shower and get ready for bed. And she dismissed the calling of her mother, and she had to tell her a few times. And then when she went to the back room, Sarah kind of just gave her some gentle discipline. And she's very sensitive, and so she started crying, and she came to me and she put her head on my shoulder and she just kind of wept a little bit. Um, and I'm not quite sure if they're at a point in their life where they have a fixed self-image of themselves, that I am strong, I'm independent, I shouldn't cry. She's not there yet. But the fact that she came over and she placed her head on my head and she cried, very much like some of your patients will eventually do for you. Some of the things that Emmanuel, told you about his life and, himself. That you spend time with someone, as Sophia did with me, as Emmanuel did with you, and they're at a place in their life where they're falling apart. Something about them is broken. Emotions are building up and they're about to explode, but they want to explode in a nice way, in a civilized way, in a coherent way, respectful way. But they're looking for someone, a vehicle, a container that can hold their explosion, their vulnerability, And Sophia found that in me, for example, for a couple of minutes, and then of course she ran back to her mom because that's the way she is. Um, um, I don't really know what else can be said about it except just repeating, you know. I had a friend at Folsom, and she kept a journal for almost, I think, 20 years of her life. And she had a girlfriend, and they were very good together. But she began to doubt the relationship, and she didn't want to say all those things to her companion, so she wrote them down. You know, these are like intimate insights that you have that you're not willing to share with anyone except your notebook. And so, out of curiosity, her companion just reads, and she sees that her girlfriend has all these doubts. She wasn't ready to read, and the other person who was journaling, wasn't ready to expose the information, to have anyone see it except her own eyes. The relationship eventually fell apart, because it was intimacy at the wrong time. I think there are lots of things that we do without being aware. Deep down, it's like, the idea of being a political animal. Whenever you want to share something of great value, you act like a politician, the pros and cons, the gains and the losses. Again, I think it happens, as Freud would say, subconsciously, deep down somewhere, and then you either kind of step back or you move forward with it. There is a scene in one of the Gospels, I think it's the Gospel of Mark. You can also watch it in the 6th Hour of Jesus of Nazareth movie, where he goes to the temple and he reads from Isaiah, and people reject him and they tell him to get lost, and he looks at the crowd and he says, kind of like, blessed is he who's not ashamed of me. You have no problem exposing yourself to people because you know who you are, you know what you are, and their judgments won't hurt you because you don't really care for them, because you understand human beings, you understand how petty they can be, how judgmental they can be, and most of their judgments are, quite fallacious. And so you're very comfortable and confident in yourself, and not confident in the sense that you have like the confidence of a stupid 20-year-old. You work really, really hard. You're good at your craft. You know what you have, and you want to share it. It's kind of like what he says again. I think it's the Gospel of Luke, where he says, if you have a light and it illuminates its surrounding, would you want to really hide it under like a blanket? And the answer is no. If you're a light, you want to kind of come out and just illuminate the darkness. And he's speaking about himself. I'm walking around stupid people. They live in Maya, ignorance. They're idiots. I'm the light. I'm like the guru, the bringer of light. I'm going to dispel the darkness and replace it with light. And what are you like exposing them to? The Spirit of God. That's you're revealing too much of yourself. In fact, all of yourself. And what are you getting what are you getting back? Nothing. But you keep doing it over and over and over again. You read the Gospel of Mark, this guy, he just gets misunderstood left and right. And yet he continues being very, very intimate and open. There is also this flip side, which is, you have someone who has had a rough past, and you know they're close, kind of like the movie Four Brothers. You know, there are two black kids and two white kids, and they're all in different foster cares. Eventually, this white woman grabs them. She houses them, and they become best friends. And in fact, they consider each other, brothers to one another. So you have four kids from various environments, and they're all psychologically damaged. They didn't trust anyone. They had faith in no one. Yet there is this woman who keeps hammering at this. She keeps taking their anger, but she gives back compassion and generosity. They keep giving her hate, but she gives kindness over and over and over again. She allows them to see. She has no problem being intimate with them, with her actions. And there comes a point where they can no longer express anger or hatred or distrust because this woman has paralyzed those components in them. And all of a sudden, one by one, they begin to tell her about their past. I mean, the movie doesn't say those things, you know. And she receives their past without any judgments. And they actually feel as if this heavy, heavy mountain of burdens, off of their shoulders now. And now they can see each other for who and what they are, and they can be friends. In fact, they can be brothers. Again, it really depends on what it is that you're giving. And it also depends on what it is that you're receiving and what each person has the capacity to give and receive. It's not easy. I mean, it's very, very easy to kind of be intimate with another through your body. It's not very difficult. But I think it's very difficult for people to reveal who they are at their core. And by their core, I mean, if there are issues deep within and they are aware of those issues, it's very difficult for them to reveal who and what they are because if you're aware of some stuff inside you, you have rejected yourself constantly for many, 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 many years. There are good amounts of yourself that you just hate about yourself and you can't change. You know they're there. So the only thing you can do really is just be with another through your physical body and just dance around these big issues inside you. But when it comes to the bigger parts, it's very, very difficult. I don't really think people have the capacity to be intimate. It's like being in the kitchen you're helping your wife or your wife is helping you, as the both of you are cooking. All of a sudden, you're talking about a specific thing and you are revealing something about yourself to your wife or she's revealing something about herself to you. And before you know it, you have an argument and then the argument turns into a fight and the fight turns into, you just deal with Stacey Allison and the rest of the people. I'm leaving. Leaving where? We were just talking. No, we weren't talking. And that's how it is. I mean, I like Ginning's approach really for the most part. How you been? How's so? What's going on? It's great. I'm sorry, it's really not about you. But And if you go back to the way we usually kind of just kind of break down the human being. Like there's a physical part of the human being, and then there's the emotional part, there's the psychological part, there's the intellectual part, there's the spiritual part. We are all like, even in this room, we're all companions, friends of each other, but we all live at different stages. So you may want to expose something that's intimate to you, but it's on a physical stage. And someone may be at the emotional, and they really can't care for this stuff down here. I mean, they'll be respectful, but they can't care for it. And in some ways, intimacy means that if you're down here and someone is up here and they're trying to reveal something to you down here, will never understand it. But if you're down here and someone is up here and this person has gone through these stages, they can understand the parts that live down here that happen to be very, very intimate for you. They can create that union, but it can't be other way around. You can't be up here. I remember one day Hussein had come to the car wash. He was just in a foul mood. He was helping me washing cars and everything because my dad and my mom were away. And there came like this 5 minutes where there were no customers. And Hussein said, so and so is an idiot. And I said, well, Hussein, what happened? And then he catches himself and he says, oh, no, I was just joking. So Hussein is a 40-year-old man. I'm like a 20-year-old kid. Hussein is up here. I'm down here. Hussein has had some difficulties with some of his relatives, and all of a sudden he blurted out. It was too much information, too much personal information, too much intimate information about his family life. Who's he giving it to? To me. Who am I? And nobody. So he stops. I think it's great. Me, on the other hand, I was greedy because I knew that if he was to give me more information, I would feel closer to him, and I would assume that he's giving this information to me because he feels like he can trust me and have faith in me and this and that would make me feel good about myself and my relationship to him. But luckily for him, and I say lucky after many, many years, that he just stopped. Because my ears had the wrong intentions in regards to hearing and listening to his laments. And even though he could have used my ears to just unburden himself, he was mature enough to kind of say, him and I belong in two different worlds. He may look like me, quack like me, but we're very, very different. And so he stopped himself. It's good for him. And it's kind of like the friend you have in Auburn or Grass Valley whose name is Helen. If I was to call her and say, hey Helen, how you doing? She would say, oh, I'm doing really good. You know how she talks. I'm doing really good. How you doing? If you were to ask her, she would disclose a lot of personal information. And that has to do with the time you spend. You're a woman, she's a woman, she trusts you. You guys have had a past, and the past has been relatively positive. If I was to call her, she doesn't really like me that much. And so she's not going to disclose all of the information. And lots of layers involved. You have never seen the movie El Cid with Charlton Heston and Sophia Loren. Of course, Charlton Heston is dead and Sophia Loren is old and not as attractive. It's like in the first hour, the movie's about 3 hours long, where Sophia Loren loves him, but because he has killed her father, and her father has told Shemay, that's her name, to avenge his death. Do whatever you can to kill this guy, because he killed your father. She loves him and she hates him. And there comes a point where, he wants to be close with her, and she rejects him. And he looks at her and he says, or she says to him, we know our secrets, each other's secrets too well. And then he walks away. Before he slams the door shut, he says, even between a husband and a wife, some secrets must always remain secrets. But you must have the intelligence and the wisdom and the insight to know that all human beings have a certain capacity beyond which they can't go. And it doesn't matter who they are or what they are. There are certain things that should never reach their ears, never reach their eyes. I think it's a good thing to remember, I knew Hussein for almost 35, 36 years. And we were really, really, really close in many ways. There were 4 or 5 of us. But I always called him Mr. Hussein, always. When he was around, I never stretched out my feet, never. I only interrupted him a few times, and it's not that I learned these things. It was like I inherited all of them from the culture, and maybe I just have the wrong idea of intimacy. Maybe it's like opening the door and just seeing everything, when in fact, your definition of intimacy is just exposing certain things to certain people. If your interpretation of intimacy was just exposing certain things to specific people, then it's not even really a question, because by then you have spent time with them, you have enough trust and faith and love about them that you just expose. If you read that book, The Perfect Being, there are these rules that they have, that the student must always, and this is not for us. That stuff took place, in the 13th century or so. That whatever enters the imagination in waking or sleep hours, the student must always tell them. Because it is really a way of emptying yourself, and it's a good place to be. I had this friend, what was her name? Jennifer, not Rebecca something. She had been involved in a motorcycle accident, and this part of her leg, all the meat was gone. It were just bones and you could see it, but she always had a band-aid over it, wrapped around it. And so I remember one day after tennis, I said, "Why do you have this on your leg? What's underneath?" But we had played tennis enough times, and we had talked enough times where she just, trusted me. And she said, "You're going to be disgusted." I said, "Listen, it's okay. What is it?" And so she removed the band-aid, and, it was no big deal. But it was something of value to her because for her, it would reduce some degrees of beauty from her. It would produce like disgust in people, and she would be categorized as ugly. You know, so most often it was wrapped. So yeah, that's really the best I can do with that.